On July 2, 1955, Pan American Flight 914 operated on the New York-Miami, Florida route. It was a beautiful sunny day. 57 passengers on board wanted to see Florida's alluring beaches and palm trees as soon as possible. The plane took off without problems, but after 3 hours, when it was already supposed to land at its destination, communication with it was lost. Dispatchers in Miami did not see any aircraft nearby on their radars. No one gave distress calls. After contacting colleagues in New York, they received an unexpected answer. Board 914 disappeared from the radar. Everything indicated that the plane was missing. The board disappeared into the air, and it was impossible to contact the pilots by radio. DC-4 simply evaporated, leaving no trace of himself or the people on board. An investigation immediately began. The route of the plane partially passed over the Atlantic Ocean, so the only reasonable explanation seemed to be its crash. Rescuers immediately notified, and the Coast Guard began to inspect the waters. But it was all in vain. Not a single part of the missing liner could be found. Everyone just shrugged in bewilderment. 61 people, including crew members, simply disappeared along with a huge car. The case was never solved, but the authorities officially announced that the plane had crashed. And no one on board managed to survive. Despite numerous and valid questions from heartbroken relatives, no one could say what really happened with Flight 914. Now, on September 9, 1992, we are moving to Caracas, Venezuela. It's quite a normal day for Juan de la Corte, a dispatcher from Caracas Airport. He came to work, made himself a coffee, sat down on a chair and began to study the situation in the sky. Then gave minor comments for current flights. How suddenly something strange happened. Out of nowhere, a new point appeared on the radar. The object seemed to be there with the help of magic or possibly hiding, and then decided to come out of the shadows. One way or another, it was strange to see him near a civilian airport. Therefore, one checked the data several times, suggesting that this was a mistake. But there was no mistake. The indicators were normal, and soon he and his colleagues were able to see this firsthand. Less than 10 minutes later, the culprit appeared in their field of vision. At first, the dispatchers mistook it for a regular plane. But when he approached, they realized that the liner was very old. It was a McDonnell Douglas passenger DC-4 equipped with propellers rather than turbines. Such aircraft, of course, were used, but they were actively replaced by modern ones. But it was far from the strangest. The real confusion began when the pilot of the mysterious liner asked the dispatchers on the radio the question, "Where are we?" Dispatcher Juan de la Corte replied, "You are approaching the airport of Caracas," and clarified the destination of the vessel, followed by a pause. The pilot responded with a 914 Pan American. "We follow the route New York, Miami, Florida. On board 4 crew members and 57 passengers." These words completely embarrassed the dispatcher that an American airline was flying here almost 2,000 kilometers from the destination. One asked a few additional questions to the pilot, but the answer baffled him. The flight should land at Miami Airport at 9:55 am on July 2, 1955. The dispatcher was silent. He was afraid to ask something else, fearing to worsen the already difficult situation. In the end he gave permission to land. The dispatcher did not know how to react to the words of the pilot. Maybe he went crazy. However, it did not matter because there were people on board. Ground services were ordered to assist the aircraft and passengers. Landing was successful. Juan finally decided to ask the question that tormented him. "Did you know that today is May 21, 1992? After a pause, he realized that he had made a mistake. The pilot puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" As soon as the employees headed for the plane, the pilot shouted in panic, "No, back, we are leaving." And in fact, the engines roared and the plane headed for the runway. Juan tried to stop the pilot on the radio, explaining that he was putting everyone in danger. The pilot was unresponsive. The board got on the runway, took off and evaporated again. Words cannot describe the condition that Juan and his colleagues experienced. The old plane had just appeared in front of them, then the pilot reported that they were heading to Miami, but before they could react, the aircraft disappeared away, dissolving into the air like a collective hallucination. No traces found at all to this day. No one can explain what happened that morning in Caracas.